House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
Hello and Hafaday and happy holidays, everybody. I'm Jason Salas, and this is House to Home. Liz and Gina are at their respective offices at RE/MAX Diamond Realty. Ladies, happy holidays to you and your families and your team.
Yes. And at RE/MAX, Chase, we say Merry Christmas.
Oh, okay. Merry Christmas. Very nice. Okay, so may jolly old Saint Nick come bearing gifts of paid mortgages and swift bank loan agreements and closing costs, I guess. Those are the three wise men, but we'll get into that the closer we get to Christmas. All right, we are talking today, rather than make like all sorts of like Yuletide puns when it comes to real estate, we're talking about landlords, right? And what rights do landlords have? Because very often we hold these conversations in the context of the client, the renter, the homeowner, whatever. If you are a landlord and everything like that, what assurances do you have that you can make sure you continue to do your business, but you don't get hosed?
Well, there is a landlord tenant law that we usually refer to because this was implemented, I think, in 2019, right, Gina? The landlord tenant law. And yes. There are some guidelines in terms of collecting security deposit. You can only collect 1 month security deposit. Mm-hmm. I know in the past, sometimes people offer, I'll give you 2 months or 3 months, or I'll pay you in advance. But the law states you cannot collect more than 1 month security deposit for the rent. So
this was just good practice before? This was never actually like supported by law?
We did not have a landlord tenant law before, but then in 2019, the law was enacted.
Okay, so contracts just basically said, but because it's familiar, pay, first and last month's rent, and then you're good, right?
Right. Well, they're guidelines that they give us.
Okay.
For example, if a tenant vacates the unit, the tenant cannot use, let's say their lease is expiring at the end of the month, they cannot use their security deposit as rent. The rent is still due, so they cannot just use that for the last month rent. So it's reflected in the lease agreement. And also usually at the end of the lease term, usually the tenant and the landlord will have to do a walkthrough inspection. Tenant has to return the key. Usually at the end of the exit inspection, the landlord and the tenant determine what needs to be restored, if there's any damages. Of course, those amounts are discussed and then deducted from the remaining their security deposit. And for example, if let's say there's damages and your security deposit is $1,000, but there's damages to the unit and you got a contractor to do an estimate, then that would be additional, cost to the tenant because they damaged something. But I always tell the landlords, please document, take photos of everything, right, Gina? These are things when they move in, they should document everything and have photos so that at the end of the lease term, any claims that you have may be substantiated based on the before and after photos. Right, Gina? These are things we do.
Well, before Jason, we practiced real estate and we enforced the leases based on like a general contract that the Guam Association of Realtors, we have a general contract we use for leases. And then the other way that we enforced our leases was through, general practices. What is common in our industry at that time? What was practiced? So at that time, we had 1 month security deposit, as Liz mentioned. That was a general practice. But now we've got the Landlord Tenant Act. So how does that affect how we do our business? Well, now we use that as our guidance. Now that we have a law in place that actually should dictate how we do our business, we have to go to that. So whenever there's a question about security deposits, inspections, the law needs to guide how we do it. So nowadays, maybe it's not the general practice that this is how it's done, but because of the law, that has to supersede what we normally do.
Mm-hmm. It's now that we have this law like supporting and like providing for the rights of landlords and everything, who can landlords go to outside of securing an attorney and maybe going to court and everything like that? Is there a step they can go before that if they have a grievance that they would like to file or a complaint? Do they go to their realtor and you guys kind of play mediator or goalie, I guess, for lack of a better term, and like iron it out?
Well, to be truthful with you, every week we get a landlord or a tenant calling us, asking us for information regarding enforcement, regarding, well, I just moved out and these are my questions or these are my issues. And if it's clear cut, I always promote work it out. That's my first go-to. There isn't anything that two reasonable people can't work out. So sit down and work it out. Some things are really obvious. There's
the operative term, though, reasonable. I mean, that fortunately on Guam, we exist in like a family-oriented atmosphere where respect is such an important thing between all of us Pacific peoples, but it doesn't always work out that way. Some people might just, like the landlord might say, hey, there's a crack in the wall that didn't exist. And the tenant might say, that was there when I got there. And now it's he said, she said. So where does the argument elevate from there?
Well, usually it's in right, like when you occupy a unit, when you do your move-in inspection, we always list an efficiency in the unit so that at the end of the lease term, they can be blamed for certain things. So if you have it documented in the move-in inspection, that's a critical document that when you exit, you can always refer back to that document. So, and when people ask us questions, usually it's based on what experiences we've had, but then we always, go back to the law. What can the landlord do? What can the tenant do? How many days? It stipulates that how many days you can do certain things, but we can only give guidance based on our experience. So another possibility is they could take the person to small claims court. There's a limitation of what they can claim. Of course, that takes a while to go through that process. It's tedious, and there are limitations of what you can claim. I know Gina one time, I think, had damages. Gina, remember that one tenant? You had damages up to 30,000, I think. Was it that? Wow. I think really high.
About 30.
About 30,000. The tenant left.
You might as well just buy the unit.
Yeah. My tenant left a German Shepherd in the unit and basically was staying at another home, and the dog was in the property for over 30 days.
Oh no! Don't say it.
Yeah.
Oh.
There was a bag of dog food, and the dog was resourceful enough to know to drink out of the toilet bowls, which luckily there were 3 of them. So yeah, the dog was fed. I mean, it found food. I mean, there was bags of dog food in there, left in there, and so it tore open the bags of dog food and it drank out of the toilet bowl. So it was doing fine, but the house was not. Yeah, I left that place empty for maybe 4 to 6 months so that I could renovate and air it out. It was a mess. And to some, so what can you do to recover that? It's going to be different for everybody.
This was prior to the enactment of the 2019 law, I'm assuming.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, so there's my question to you now, and maybe we can wrap up with that. If this did happen after that passage of the law, and I'll pose this question to the both of you, how would you have handled a situation like that, where you have just a property in deplorable condition, really weird situations and everything like that? How would you have actually used the law, to the advantage of the landlord?
Actually, for me, what I would have done is take the previous move-in inspection and photos, and then I take after exit inspection and photos, document what it was before, document what it was after, make a list of the repairs, get contractor quotes of what the cost would be to rectify the situation, and then present that to the tenant. Now, if the tenant refuses, then what are my options? My options is to go to small claims or go to an attorney and file suit.
Well, Gina, based on the damages, you were saying $30,000 is not small claims.
No, it's not small claims. So every individual, every situation is going to be different. And I elected to negotiate with the tenant, and made it, so we were, over time, we were able to collect the damages. Now, the cost of keeping the unit empty so that I can get it renovated. And so it took about 6 months, because part of the situation was I had to get rid of the smell. You can't get rid of that type of odor overnight, or sometimes not even within a month. There was a lot of bleach involved. And so it took me a while. I had to strip almost everything. Every flooring in that house had to come out. And I chose to keep it empty so that it would eventually, the smell would dissipate, right? But what if you're a landlord who can't afford to do these things? What do you do? Yeah, I mean, investing in real estate is a commitment. You now own the business of renting property out, and every business has a risk. And you need to really evaluate what your risk factor is, because every business has a risk. There is no way to ensure yourself that you will not have any rental risk. And so you need to be prepared for whatever comes your way.
And that is the perfect life lesson as someone getting into investing in real estate. And we'll end with that. And hopefully next week, we're going to continue to share the Merry Christmas spirit, and hopefully not have any stories to share about dogs being left alone. Man, Gina, a dog? You had to bring up that story?
You missed the part about it did well. It was well fed and had lots of water.
Okay. Next week, let's go talk about like reindeer or something like that, or, the elves. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And hopefully the dog's okay. Bye-bye, everybody.